Coming up on Mountain News at 5:30, a bill that means children could not be required to be vaccinated for COVID was heard in a committee today.
And the fate of a former South Carolina attorney is now in the hands of a jury. We will recap the closing arguments in the Murdaugh double murder trial.
And watching the potential for more heavy rain, very high winds, and severe weather into the end of the work week. Breaking down the latest coming up as Mountain News at 5:30 starts right now.
Dedicated to Southern and Eastern Kentucky, this is WYMT Mountain News at 5:30.
Good evening, I'm Steve Hensley.
And I'm Olivia Calfee. No severe weather today, but storms will likely return tomorrow, bringing high winds and lots of rain.
Keeping a close eye on everything. Our First Alert Weather Day continues, and let's check in with meteorologist Evan Hatter for the latest. Evan.
Yeah. That's right, guys. We continue to see calm conditions out there tonight. You see just the overcast with a 60 in London Corbin Airport. It's been a mild day. It just hasn't gotten too warm out there. Buffalo Mountain also cloudy at this point. We're a clean sweep on pinpoint Doppler, the calm before the storm, if you will. Already seeing that off to our south and west, tornado warnings in southeast Oklahoma. That whole system heading in our direction as we head into tomorrow. Temperatures middle and upper 50s to low 60s region-wide right now. We'll continue the calm conditions through the evening hours. You see, those showers don't start moving in, I think, until about 11 and later as those lows get into the mid-50s. Our concern into the day tomorrow. A level 3 enhanced risk for severe weather in place for Monticello up to about Stanton. And it wouldn't shock me if this gets moved a little bit to the east once we hit the early update tomorrow morning. Either way, everybody's going to be at least in a level 2 slight risk heading into tomorrow. Not only that, damaging winds and isolated tornadoes the concern, but also the high wind warning. This just got expanded in time, also includes some of our southern counties as well, and a wind advisory. Wind gusts outside of thunderstorms, 40, 50, even 60 miles per hour into the day tomorrow. A very active weather day in place, and I'll have the very latest, including a breakdown, coming up in a few minutes, guys.
Thank you, Evan. Kentucky lawmakers have advanced a bill that would prevent a requirement for children to be vaccinated for COVID-19.
That bill was heard in a House Health Committee today.
WYMT's Phil Pendleton has more on the bill and the mild debate it brought.
We have a jam-packed agenda.
The language is actually an amendment to an existing law dealing with everything from safe schools construction to requirements for eye exams and sanitary issues.
That no person's entity or corporation or government agency should or shall require a child to receive a COVID shot.
It's House Bill 101, and the sponsor says it places whether kids get vaccines solely in the hands of their caregivers and not the state board of or Department of Education.
Now, this doesn't mean that a parent, guardian, anybody else that has the responsibility of that child does not, if they want them to have a COVID shot, that's fine. That's not what this bill is about.
The chairman of the committee stated that this was not in any way to state that vaccines are not effective, just that they want the parents to have the say-so whether kids get vaccines to go to school.
The bill passed in committee 14-3. Representative Rachel Rourke and others in the Democratic caucus voted no.
I think that, for a long time, in terms of public settings and public schools, we've required vaccinations, and there are alternatives if a family member does not wish to vaccinate. That's why we have homeschool.
The bill now advances to the full House floor. In Frankfort, Phil Pendleton, WYMT Mountain News.
Representative McPherson says there is the concern the State Department of Education could decide after the session to mandate vaccines for public school children for the next school year.
Tennessee is the first state to restrict drag performances. Republican Governor Bill Lee just signed a bill into law to limit adult cabaret performances in public. Under the bill, adult cabaret performances are defined as those with topless dancers, go-go dancers, exotic dancers, strippers, and male or female impersonators. Republicans have said the law protects children against sexually explicit shows. Once signed, the law would go into effect July 1st.
The Justice Department is urging an appeals court to reject former President Trump's sweeping claims of immunity and litigation surrounding the January 6th Capitol insurrection.
The court is considering several private lawsuits against Trump for his conduct leading up to the 2021 attack on the U.S. Capitol. The lawsuits were brought by Capitol police officers and Democratic members of the House. In a filing today, the DOJ argued that a president cannot be absolutely immune for speech on matters of public concern if the speech incites violence. The department says President Trump's January 6th speech directly before the riot incited the attack. The House Ethics Committee is officially moving forward with a probe of embattled Representative George Santos of New York. The panel announced it will investigate several things: whether Santos engaged in unlawful activity in his 2022 congressional campaign, if he failed to properly disclose required information on statements filed with the House, and if Santos violated federal conflict of interest laws in connection with his role in a firm that provides fiduciary services.
The U.S. announced plans to expand minimum cybersecurity requirements for critical sectors of the nation's economy and government.
After a marked increase in attacks in recent years, the Biden administration wants private companies and government agencies to take more stringent steps aimed at preventing them.
CBS's Nicole D'Antonio reports from Washington, D.C.
The Biden administration unveiled a new strategy aimed at fending off a wide range of cyber attacks and security breaches before they happen.
We should be confident that the power won't go out because a rogue nation or terrorists launched a cyber attack to disrupt our way of life.
As cyber attacks grow in number and sophistication, the new framework emphasizes threats from China as well as Russia, Iran, and North Korea. The U.S. plans to use military, law enforcement, and diplomatic tools in going on the offensive against future attacks.
The targeting of critical infrastructure is absolutely serious. We're looking at communications, energy, transportation, where adversaries are trying to gain access so that they can collect and also potentially disrupt.
This week, the White House told all federal workers they have 30 days to stop using TikTok on government-issued devices. Congress approved the ban, arguing the Chinese-owned app is a security risk. The White House plans to work with Congress on legislation that would impose legal liability on software companies that don't meet basic security standards in their products. The more aggressive approach comes as energy companies, food companies, schools, and hospitals have been targeted in recent years amid a spike in ransomware and malware attacks.
When our adversaries threaten our national security and public safety, they need to know that we're going to use all instruments of national power to stop them.
One of the more prominent incidents happened in 2021 when Russia-based hackers broke into the Colonial gas pipeline system by stealing a single password. Nicole D'Antonio, CBS News, Washington.
The Justice Department's U.S. Marshal Service discovered a major ransomware attack compromising some of its most sensitive information, including law enforcement materials and the personal information of employees and potential investigative targets.
Former CEO of Theranos, Elizabeth Holmes, is hoping to delay her 11-year prison sentence. She was sentenced last year for defrauding investors while running the failed blood testing startup. Court filings reveal she recently gave birth to her second child. Her lawyers say she now has 2 young children and is not a flight risk or danger to the community. But in a January filing, prosecutors said Holmes tried to flee to Mexico. Holmes has been ordered to turn herself in on April 27th.
Alex Murdaugh's fate is now in the hands of the jury. The day after prosecutors presented their closing arguments in the double murder case, the defense took its turn and claimed the once prominent attorney had no reason to kill his wife and son. CBS's Nikki Batiste reports from the courthouse in Waltersboro, South Carolina.
There are 2 words that justice demands in this case, and those 2 words are not guilty.
His voice quivering in the final moments, Alec Murdaugh's attorney asked the jury to find his client not guilty of murdering his wife and son.
I respectfully request that you do not compound a family tragedy with another.
Attorney Jim Griffin accused law enforcement of fabricating evidence and failing miserably in their investigation into the 2021 murders of Maggie and Paul Murdaugh.
Deputy Rutland talked about seeing hair in Maggie's hands, you'll recall. You didn't hear anything about the hair in Maggie's hands from that moment forward. Was it testing?
He said Murdaugh did lie about his whereabouts in the minutes before the murders, but blamed it on his drug addiction.
I mean, I tell you, he lied because that's what addicts do. Addicts lie. He lied because he had a closet full of skeletons.
When the defense wrapped, prosecutors laid out their final rebuttal.
This is a common sense case.
John Meters argued the scion of one of South Carolina's most prominent legal families committed the murders to distract from his financial crimes.
His world's collapsing, his world's coming down. This was the only way he could save. It's the only way he could save Alex.
A motive the defense had dismissed as outlandish.
Totally illogical, irrational, and insane.
The day began with a bit of courtroom drama. A juror was dismissed for having spoken about the case outside of court. An alternate took her spot to begin the deliberations that will determine Murdaugh's fate. Nikki Batiste, CBS News, Walterboro, South Carolina.
Coming up on Mountain News at 5:30, saving for your down payment is a critical step in getting into a new home. We hear from a financial coach on ways you can build your bank.
Heavy rain, severe weather, even the possibility of tornadoes as we head into the day tomorrow. Breaking down the latest from Future View. Straight ahead.